Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Canada is truly the country where nothing ever happens. In Canada, everything will eventually reset towards the mean. Eventually, we will all be listening to Nickelback again because that is where Canada's heart is. And Mark Carney and his Liberal government held out against Donald Trump for about 72 hours. After Donald Trump ended trade talks over the digital services tax being implemented in Canada, there was all these Liberal supporters online praising Mark Carney for standing strong against Trump. We don't need the Americans, was a lot of people's cry. And now they're saying, what a savvy move by Mark Carney to cave to Donald Trump for the good of Canada. I love watching Liberal supporters ride the roller coaster of trying to find a justification for why everything Mark Carney does is super intelligent and strategic, even if it's literally just him making a decision and then going back on that decision and then going back on it again. Again, we always reset towards the mean in Canadian politics. But let's get into the meat of this issue. I find it hilarious. I'm going to read the government's website, and I want to go through a lot of Liberal reactions. But before I get into it, guys, hey, if you like this show, make sure to give a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are not yet a subscriber, and leave a comment on what you think about the situation. So here is the government's website. This was released late last night, around 7 o'clock. I noticed it Eastern time since I'm currently in Toronto. And it says Canada rescinds digital services tax to advance broader trade negotiations with the United States. Now, I'm not going to read a lot of this because it kind of does just go on about nothing. But I love that it has this kind of like slightly strategic sound to it. It should just say, we're sorry we rescind the tax, because this tax, Donald Trump is right about it. And by the way, Joe Biden was right about it. It was the Democratic administration who was complaining about this tax last year when it was first being passed. It only got implemented this year. And by the way, was going to retroactively tax firms 3% up to back to the year 2022. It is a tariff against American tech firms because it is a basically 3% revenue tax on tech firms. How many big Canadian tech firms are there? One, Shopify. This is mostly going to be taking money from Google, Apple, Amazon, and other services like that. And so, rightfully so, the Americans, both Democrats and Donald Trump, if Kamala Harris was president right now, she would be complaining about it too. They saw this as obviously a tariff on them. It was a very stupid thing to do in the middle of negotiations. So Trump rightfully pulled out. I'm not an unpatriotic Canadian for saying that. If you go and wax someone on the nose, they might get a little mad at you. Oh, but Trump put tariffs on us. Okay, I don't like that. We also have had tariffs on them for decades with our supply management system, like the dairy tariffs, the milk tariffs, chicken, all that stuff. It's very hard to trade into Canada compared to trading from Canada into the United States. Frankly, it's hard to trade into certain provinces if you aren't on the special list where you're allowed to produce as much milk as you want. If you're in Alberta, if you produce milk and you sell it, you could go to prison. That happened recently. It happened with people selling eggs too. But here it says June 29, 2025, Ottawa, Ontario, Department of Finance, Canada. Canada's new government, it's really just the old government continuing, but Canada's new government is engaged in complex negotiations on an economic and security partnership with the United States, focusing on getting the best deal for Canadian workers and businesses. Prime Minister Carney has been clear that Canada will take as long as necessary, but no longer, to achieve that deal. And then it goes on to say, basically, we're getting rid of the digital services tax. It's hilarious. And then we're going to try and reach a trade agreement on the 21st. Complex negotiations are going on, guys. These are complex. It's a rough and tumble world out there. You don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes life hits you from the side. And sometimes you punch your trade partner with a tax in the middle of negotiations where we're supposed to be lowering tariffs on both sides, and they get pissed. Who could have seen that coming? Oh my goodness, put me in, coach. I can do better than these people. Any of you could do better than these people. Anyone, if you the dumbest person you meet in a day could do better than this. But we've somehow found even dumber to put in our government to mess up trade negotiations. It was so bad that at the same time Mark Carney passed the DST, he was implementing it. He then went to Europe and said, do you guys want out of the DST? We will sign a trade agreement on digital products so that you guys can make an end run around it. Yeah, that wasn't going to tick off the Americans even more, that we were implementing a tax and then immediately giving the Europeans an out of it, because again, it was just a tax on Americans. But now I want to get over to some of the reaction online. I called this yesterday when it happened. I saw that it was rescinded like an hour after it had happened. And I said, nothing ever happens. And the liberal voters will claim this is a bold move by Mark Carney after cheering him for implementing it a few days ago. And I did like that. I actually saw some Conservative Party MPs like that tweet because it's absolutely true. I want to find some of the people who are now already saying that this was a bold move, that's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for them. I like this. I love this tweet right here. I'm going to go through a few of these where it's someone's like tweet from yesterday and then it's their tweet today. So we have this guy, Peter Ratcliffe, forever Canadian. He says, frankly, I am very proud to have Mark J. Carney running things for Canada while Donald Trump is chief authoritarian on the unstable states. I don't want our enemies to like our leaders. I demand that they respect Canada and respect our prime minister. U.S. declares Canada as enemies. Okay, well, okay. How did that work out? How did that work out? This was 5 hours ago. So the other one was yesterday at like 5 p.m. or like yesterday at like 5 a.m. It was sometime like that. And he said before the DST was rescinded. Now he says Canada, the toughest, smartest, kindest, most civilized 40 million people country that the U.S. will just never own. If or it's the toughest, smartest, kindest, most civilized 40 million people country that the U.S. will never own. I don't even know what he's trying to say there. If Canada decides to live without U.S. trade, we're tough enough to survive and then thrive. But the U.S. is basically screwed. You don't even see our cards. Dude, he tweeted this after Canada caved. Dude, we caved, and these people are still tweeting, we're not owned. We're not owned. We could still do it ourselves. We're just going to trade with the U.S. temporarily. Just a temporary measure. This is like, and I like Canada. I'm a patriotic Canadian. Look at my pin right here. Which side's up? Look at my pin. I have a patriotic Canadian pin. I want Canada to be per capita wealthier than the United States. I'd love for Canada to become an even more powerful country. I want us to be not the bottom of the barrel of the G7. I want us to be the absolute top. At the same time, this entire thing from the liberals and their supporters comes across like someone moving back in with their mother and then saying, I'm only doing this until I get my feet, until I basically get myself up off the ground. I'm just going to be here temporarily. And then they're like still living with you like years later and they still haven't gotten jobs. Like just until we get steady as a country, we'll keep trading with the United States. Then I swear I'm going to go to Hollywood and pursue my dreams. You can't tell me what to do, Dad. And then like Trump's like, go, idiot. You're like, or pay me rent. And then we eventually come back and we make up, we like apologize, but we say, hey, I can still leave whenever I want. And he's like, sure you can, kid. Okay, cool. But now I got to get to some other stuff here. I like this one. Just saying, I'm gonna try and find if there's another one. Okay. Oh, there is. I love it. Okay, so this is 15 hours ago. This was before the DST was rescinded. There's this account. It's called Gator Gum. Yeah, it's kind of a not like anonymous account, but these people, this person has 1,600 likes, 286 retweets. There are a lot of liberals who agree with this. Most of them are too embarrassed to tweet this stuff out themselves, so they just like this person's tweets. But this person said 15 hours ago, perhaps Carney is in no hurry to sign a deal with Trump because he knows full well signing deals with a con man means absolutely nothing. So far, Trump has refused to honor his existing trade deals, so signing with him is essentially meaningless. Trump has removed all honor and prestige from the presidency. Okay, so let's go to just 9 hours ago now. And so this person now, coming from like this sounds like a North Korean newscast. Now they're saying, so Carney has decided to pull the DST for now. Okay, very intelligent move there. Seems like a good move. Our part of the negotiations by the looks of things. Wonder if it was a red herring. It will be interesting to watch all the people against the tax suddenly think this was a bad move. Get ready for the flip. No, it was a bad tax. Then it's a bad tax now. The thing is that they assume that you're as intellectually inconsistent as they are. So they think that while they're flip flopping, you're going to flip flop too. No, we're still standing over here, pointing and laughing. That's what's happening. One person didn't like that the tax was taken away, but it is predictable. Actually, it's probably even a good move for them to be saying stuff like this. But the NDP leader, Don Davies, came out against the government removing the tax, but it's because the NDP is not a serious party, so it's allowed to be unhinged about basically wanting to fight the US over everything. So Don Davies says negotiating with Donald Trump is not easy. That's clear, but rescinding the GST is pure caving into Trump and his billionaire friends. Canada is a sovereign country with the right to make our own tax laws. Abandoning fair taxation of tech giants is unacceptable appeasement. What do they mean by fair taxation of tech giants? It's a tax that applies to, by the way, all tech service companies. And it's not like we're trying to equalize it because everyone else has been paying a 3% higher income tax rate than everyone else. No, they're paying 3% more than everyone else is. That's not fair. That's literally the opposite of fair. That is not equal. They are paying more. And by the way, 3% is a lot. I mentioned this in yesterday's video. Mark Carney was pretending like it was a really big, substantial tax reduction for him to propose during the election a 1% tax reduction under $50,000. A bracket where you're not even paying taxes on the first $18,000, that's tax exempt. So he's going to give us a 1% rate reduction on our taxes for under $50,000, which only really applies to $32,000 of money. That was considered really a big deal. But it wasn't a big deal when he wanted to put a 3% revenue, like an income tax, higher corporate taxes on tech firms on all of their income. It's not like after $100 million, they had to pay an extra 3. They pay an extra 3 on all of it. And that was considered no big deal. But the NDP are socialists, so they think it's totally cool. They think and just taxing anyone who's successful equals fair. It's ergo fair because the person's successful. But Don Davies added to liberal concessions on Golden Dome, NATO 5%, and Bill C2 violations of Canadians' privacy rights, and it looking more and more like Mr. Carney has his elbows up during the pregame skate, only to drop them once the game started. I can agree with that. I disagree with his perspective on those particular policies. Bill C2 wasn't great, but there's some good elements of it, but there's some really bad elements of it, like, just reading random Canadians' mail. It's good that they're cracking down on certain elements of money laundering and certain elements of fentanyl dealing, but then it goes a bit too far. So I disagree with Don Davies overall when it comes to those policies, but he is right that the Liberals keep doing this sort of elbows up, elbows down game, like they're doing the funky chicken. My goodness. I love stuff like this, seeing retroactively posts like this from this Rody person that you guys see a lot. Again, a big account. This tweet alone, 3,600 likes. Rody, excellent news. Carney stood up for Canada. He didn't roll over like all said he did. Yeah. Rody, if you're listening to this, imagine that this is your moment. For just this moment, and this moment can feel like it lasts an eternity. For this moment, Mark Carney still has not caved, and you're still living in nirvana, believing that Mark Carney is going to stand there holding you tight, making sure that he's not going to get rid of the digital services tax, because for some reason it makes you feel better to have a digital services tax, despite the fact that you're going to pay higher prices. But whatever, it's your moment, Roddy. You get to have it. You get to have Mark Carney still the strong superhero that you think he is. Now, guys, let's move over to my favorite person on the planet, with no exaggeration. That is Laura Babcock. This is what she uploaded this morning against the United States right after this whole debacle took place. So she's talking about all the American-owned media and how it's undermining Canada, because it's fine that the CBC is owned by the government. That doesn't influence their views. But because the National Post and some of these have American ownership or partial American ownership, this means that they're fully mega newspapers.
I want people to understand that we're not talking about it enough in the mainstream media here in Canada. When we have an actual threat on our border, there's a lot of American-owned media that is never going to let their foot off the gas. So we really need our Canadian-owned media to get in the game.
Wherever I go, I get a sense that Canadians get it. Certainly, as you point out, our mainstream media completely uninterested. Another yawn, another roll of the eyes. I mean, part of it, I think, is, if you're a paid pundit in Canada, you have to have that world-weary cynicism that you've seen it all before and nothing surprises you. Well, nobody's seen this before.
I guess I wish we all had the worldview of the washed-up hippie Charlie Angus. But the entire time they're like, Laura Babcock is like actually when she gets like going, she actually starts like rocking back and forth in her chair, and her eyes start like bobbing up and down. I feel like I'm watching an origin story for a supervillain who's like about to break out or something like that, like sitting in an asylum waiting for their moment to slip through the bars and go on a rampage. I've said it before. One of history's greatest villains is whoever hides Laura Babcock's lithium from her. Oh my goodness. I think this is a good. I think this is a good thing to end on. This is a positive comment by the food professor, who's great, Sylvain Charlebois, which is a fantastic name to say. I feel like I'm a Three Musketeer if I say that name. So Sylvain Charlebois here says, in case you're keeping score, Mark Carney has been prime minister for over 100 days, and since then, tariffs with the U.S. have gone up, not down. Just saying. And he's absolutely right. Do you know why? Because he's very weak. Mark Carney is not a good negotiator. That's why we're currently in the situation we're in. We could have saved so much money by signing a deal ASAP, by dropping the supply management system, or at least weakening it, slowly ramping it down, letting those farmers who currently are surviving because of their subsidized prices, let them figure out how to actually operate like any other farmer does, actually creating efficient goods and selling them at like prices that are competitive. Again, Alberta farmers want to produce milk, but you'll get arrested if you try to, because Quebec farmers and Ontario farmers are the ones who are allowed to produce. That's how insane Canada is. We could slowly ratchet down, let those people figure it out. We would be so much better for it. Even if we just got rid of supply management, sans getting a deal with the US, we would still be better for it. Because guess what? We wouldn't have like high prices anymore in the grocery store for basic goods. But anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. So again, reminder, like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, do all that stuff. Actually, my light over here just given out all the power. By the way, if you go check out Josh's channel, the Elevate podcast, you will suspiciously notice that what he uploads today is also has this painting in the background. It's because we were at a conference together and he didn't have his recording equipment, so then he ended up using mine, and mine's failing on me now because Josh used all the juice in my lights, and now they're turning off. I'm gonna have to get that guy, even though I was the one who let him use it, and I was the one who failed to charge it. But never you mind. That's a different issue. My faults are actually his faults. That's what I'm trying to say here. See you guys later.